After more than 1 year of making Linux videos, it shouldn't really come as a surprise that at some point I want to dive in deeper. But up until now I didn't really have the time to do so. Linux is about choice, freedom, and the ability to create the perfect operating system for your personal needs. More than over a year ago, I already asked myself the question, what do I expect from an operating system? What do I need? But honestly, it didn't really lead anywhere. I switched from Debian testing to Fedora to work more towards an official release, and I loved it. But nonetheless, while I still love Fedora in what it is, it was never my #1 personal choice. And now the time has come to utilize that #1 to build my own Linux distribution. Sort of. But before we continue, why don't you go ahead and already click that like button and even subscribe to the channel if you're generally interested in Linux content. Thank you very much, and let's get it going. Building your own Linux distribution is really not all that hard, because what even makes a Linux distribution a Linux distribution? All things considered, there are quite a lot of different opinions out there, which makes sense, since not all distributions are vastly different from their base. There are also quite some funny memes out there. What I personally consider a Linux distribution depends on the following things. If you use another Linux distribution and not build it from the ground up by yourself, then in my opinion, it depends if you can update and maintain it independently from the source. You know, you can customize every Linux distribution to your liking, but that doesn't really result in another distribution. You're just customizing a GUI. But as soon as you provide your own repository, build applications from source, or change some default configurations, then it can become very different quite drastically. And that's what I'm trying to achieve someday in the future. But for now, let's start off at the beginning. To be exact, right now. I definitely won't be building everything except the kernel from the ground up, but will choose a distribution which I then alter to my likings. And that distribution is nothing else than Debian 12 Bookworm. Ah, Debian. You'll never forget your first. No, but in all seriousness, even back when I switched to Fedora, I always knew that at some point I'll probably end up back on Debian. And there are a lot of reasons why. Let's start off with the most important ones. It's incredibly stable, it has the biggest collection of packages if we neglect the AUR and NIX, since they basically just collect everything of everything, and most importantly, it's community maintained. One thing that you've heard me say from time to time was how important it is that a Linux distribution is backed by a company for long-time service and support, and I still go by that. However, I'm not that type of user personally. If I have time, I really want to get under the hood, and if I could do that on any distro I want, then I might as well just choose a community maintained one. But there is also another reason on why I want to use Debian, but more on this later. Let's move on to how I want to shape Debian to my personal liking, and why my solution is only a sort of distribution. Let's start off with desktop environments. For once, I have not yet decided which one I want to use, but for my general use cases, the overall development pacing and my personal preferences, it will either end up being GNOME or KDE Plasma. But either way, I'm not just gonna use the current versions that Debian Stable comes with, and I won't switch to Debian testing. My approach here is to either use backports or even compile the desktop environments or parts of them from source. This should be fun. Speaking of compiling from source, I think I'm trying to get as many native packages as I can. App images, flatpaks and even snaps are convenient and work, but they're just not as fun. I might set up a local repository, or I'm gonna do some scripting and create a micro package manager, I guess. Either way, I'm still gonna rely mostly on the official Debian stable repositories, especially when it comes to system updates. And I think that is what makes my Linux distribution not really a Linux distribution. Because essentially it's just Debian 12 with a newer desktop environment, changed commands and applications, shortcuts and pre-installed customization tools, and that's about it. Well, I'm also going to create my own ISO for a faster deployment, but yeah, everyone can do that. Even if I were to distribute it, I still wouldn't be calling it a different operating system altogether, because it is just Debian on steroids for my personal needs. And I believe that's good. See, in the long run, and I mean like the really long run, I want to contribute to Debian and not just my own distribution. I still believe that if you base your own distribution off another, then it's best to try to change the base distro itself and not continue to split apart. Otherwise, my own Linux distribution would just end up in the fragmentation problem. Different developers often disagree on certain choices, and that's fine. But working together, we might find a middle ground, or at least be able to understand the other's viewpoint. I really don't like it when I see a new distribution completely changing fundamental things of its base distro and not really contribute to the original one, even though they might also want the same functionality in the end. It's always, look, I can do it better, instead of, we can make it better. Contributing to an already successful project is the way that I want to go. And someday, we'll see how it plays out. How did we even get here? Oh yeah, desktop environments and packages. I'm actually interested looking more towards Plasma, even though I still prefer GNOME at the moment. In the past year, it seems like a lot has changed when it comes to customization, and while I still don't really like its default everything has settings philosophy for new users, for myself, I don't really mind it all that much, because I just edit it out anyway. So yeah, I actually don't know what else there is to talk about right now, but here's what's gonna happen next. I will share updates on the progress and of course make videos about applications, tools or whatever else I come across. So definitely make sure that you're subscribed to the channel, and if you like this video, then please make sure to show it. While I get to work, why don't you watch another video in the meantime? And all that's left to say now is good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. I'll see you around.